forests and farmland of Britain to the rifle ranges and stalking grounds that shape our countryside. This is the Highseat podcast. Whether you're involved in deer management, passionate about rifle shooting, working agriculture or forestry, or simply enjoy life in the British countryside, you're in the right place. Each episode we'll be talking to the people who shape our industry: deer managers, stalkers, farmers, foresters, professional shooters, conservationists and experts from across the rural sector. We'll be discussing deer management in the UK, rifle shooting across all disciplines, wildlife, conservation, countryside issues, fieldcraft equipment, legislation and the challenges facing those who live and work in the outdoors. Our aim is to simply bring you honest conversations, practical knowledge and real-world experience from the people at the heart of the countryside. So, however you're joining us, welcome to the Highseat podcast. So this is our first podcast, and for this session I've invited Dominic Griffith to have a conversation with us. He's an old friend of mine, and we're just going to chat about deer and general things around deer management. We're here with Dominic Griffith, author of Deer Management in the UK, a book he's been published for a number of years. So Dominic, what's your experience? Where do we start with you? You've got such a wealth of knowledge.
Well, hardly. But I mean, I've actually been in the game almost 40 years. Next year it'll be 40 years, which is like a whole lifetime, isn't it? And it all started as a pony boy up on the in the Highlands.
Okay, which estate?
That was Moy. I think it's now called Craig Miggy. So it was taken away from private ownership. I think it's now SNH or something run it. I'm not quite sure of the detail, but yeah, Moy Lodge was where I started. It was a big mountain.
Yeah.
We didn't have a pony, or there was a pony boy. I had the first three-wheel motorbike in Scotland, which was turning over all the time on the hills, as you can imagine. I remember we had leather boots, which leaked, +4s, which got wet every day, a barber, which didn't keep you dry. You just got cold and wet every day, but somehow you got used to it.
So you're from Hampshire?
Yeah.
How did you come to be working as a pony boy in Scotland?
Oh, I think it's because there was a succession of us Cirencester students who sort of one introduced the next one. So there was always somebody who...
So it was through college?
Effectively, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Great. Moving on from there then, after being with Pony Boy,
yeah,
your next steps.
Yeah. Well, I think in 87 we set up this little business. And it was an interesting thing. People often say, why? You must remember that there were no roe in Hampshire when I was born. Well, it's not strictly true. There were roe in Surrey and the Hampshire borders, but effectively there were no roe in Hampshire when I was born. There were no roe in Gloucester when I was at Cirencester Agricultural College. And this is all a very recent issue. And so when I was, at the age when I started this business, it was because roe were becoming numerous. There weren't many people who knew about them and understood them. They weren't being treated very reverently. And I just thought there's got to be something we can do with them. And rather naively set up a little business.
So you say you set up a bit. What was the business? Was it deer management?
Yeah, it was. But what a difference in those days, because a roe was worth £50 in those days. Right?
In the skin, gralloped, head, feet off.
Well, actually, you sold it head on, feet on in those days to the French market. So I was getting £50. So if you shot like 3 roe in a week, you were almost able to survive. Your petrol bill was 20 quid, and it was an extraordinarily different working environment in those days. When you think that the same roe today, 40 years on, is 30 quid, it's very different. So I was learning on the job, really, to be honest. I was very lucky to have a mentor in Richard Pryor. And so sort of things progressed and became very bigger and bigger over the years.
Okay, so training. Why did you get involved in training?
Well, that's an easy one, and that is because my first experience when I was in Scotland was utterly ruined for me by the mentor I had, I remember thinking, I've just done something really significant. It's a big deal when you take your first deer, and you'll remember it yourself. And it's so important to make this a sort of special moment for people, not just special, but reverent, if you like. And it just couldn't have been worse, with the experience I had. And I remember thinking at the time, I am going to make sure that when I'm in a position to help people, I make it a positive experience.
Expand on that. What was bad about it?
Oh, I mean, like everything. Honestly, it was like, oh, you've shot the wrong deer, you shot it in the back. None of these things were true, but, it was like the immediate result was, the immediate sort of reaction was all negative. So I thought, oh, I've done everything wrong, but actually I hadn't. And it was sort of, it was awful, really.
Yeah, we've got a big push in the industry to get mentors involved in shooting, to encourage new people into the stalking industry. To me, I feel that one of the big issues with it is the quality of mentorship. How do we make sure that we're getting newcomers to sport or industry rather than sport? How do we make sure that those newcomers get the right people? It's almost an impossible task. Any views on that?
Well, no, I mean, everybody thinks they're good at it, and some people are better than others. Our friend Glyn is noticeably brilliant at it. He's really good at getting on with people and putting them at their ease. And I hope that's what I've done with people who've been out for the first time with me. I don't know what it is. Perhaps you've got to be a little, I don't know, a little. You've got to be generous when you do this. And that's just down to temperament and personality. It's nothing to do with how good you are at it. It's really about how good you are with people.
Yeah, I refer to it as giving the love. You've got to show people love.
Yeah,
be kind to them.
Yeah, and when things go wrong, things go wrong. You've got to be kind to them up to a point.
Yeah, screaming and shouting at people isn't going to help them at all.
No,
so it's important we don't do that
in this industry.
Deer management. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of deer management. We've got a significant problem in the south of the country with fallow deer. In Scotland, we're red deer and sika. Across England, we've got huge populations of muntjac.
Mm-hmm.
Where and how and why did it start to go wrong?
Well, I think us professionals missed a trick in the 80s. I never imagined that muntjac would do what they've done. I remember when they first came on, the property I was looking after, and being quite excited about it. Oh, God, muntjac is interesting. And then they went away again. And then they came back again. And on that property now, they're in plague proportions. You just simply can't. You up your cull every year, but the numbers remain the same. It's a really, really interesting and difficult problem to solve. But I think we missed a trick in the 80s, not imagining how bad it would get. But I think almost worse than that was, we never saw fallow coming. I just can't believe how fallow have done what they've done on the areas that I've looked after. New populations have turned up. Completely new herds. I mean, obviously they've been created from two neighbouring herds which have come together, but the numbers of fallow have really caught me by surprise, and it's created a problem which at the moment is insoluble. Whilst the cost of stalking and preparing and gathering a deer is greater than the revenue you receive, I can't see that this is going to work. Something has to give in a big way if, for example, government wants to achieve what it wants to achieve and reduce fallow populations.
Okay, so we've moved on a fair few steps there.
Yeah.
I just want to step back a little bit to fallow. From an environmental point of view, to me, I feel that, because when I was growing up, and I've been actually a little bit more than 40 years since I shot my first deer. I've looked at the expansion of fallow, and when I was working, I left school at 16 and got myself on a YTS scheme working as a gamekeeper. And at that time, the guy I was working for had me out walking through the wood to try and move out a fallow because we'd got 3 fallow in this piece of woodland. And he saw that as a big problem and a big issue. And look, but now, and I still manage land around that original place where I worked, and that woodland is decimated.
Yeah.
It's like a plague of locusts has gone through and cleared the understory to about 1.5 meters up, and it's just completely barren, bare. Woods are dying. They're full of ash trees, which are now falling down. There's no regeneration.
No.
But where did it go wrong? And I think that we look back at the change in agriculture.
Yeah.
We went from a predominantly spring drilling to winter drilling.
Yeah, that was in the 70s, late 70s.
Yeah, late 70s, 80s. We had then greenery on the ground all the way through, an abundance of food for fallow. So the fecundity rate would have been much better.
Yeah, a little bit,
they were in good condition. They'd always bring off their young. How did we manage to go from having 3 in a woodland to
300?
To 300.
I suppose that you get to a critical mass. And when you get to that critical mass, they are impossible to, except by extreme methods, that it's really, really difficult to get control of them again. That whatever you do, and then once you get the other problem with mismatched sex ratios, I mean, the males have always been targeted above the females, which has been a continuing mistake, which is something which in our training we've constantly tried to remind people the difference in a fecundity rate between 100 deer, of which 90 are female and 10 are male, against that of 50 males and 50 females. You know, it's just such a massive difference. And I think that was one of the issues, that we mismanaged our sex ratios. But
so I'm just going to butt in there, and so Scotland, they've bought the male season to all year round. How can that possibly help with managing deer numbers by having such a huge cull on the males?
Well, it'll help protect some vulnerable trees and crops at certain times of year from red deer. So it's bound to reduce the some element of damage. But what it's failing to do, and this is what everybody's failing to do at the moment, except I hope in the sort of any training I've been involved in, which is that what matters is what is left behind as much as what you cull. So everybody's saying, cull more deer, cull more deer, cull more deer. But at some stage, we've got to remember, what are we leaving behind? Because what we've got to leave behind is a population which is as close to a natural population as possible. We are all trying to manage deer to their best state, to a natural state. We're pretending to be the predator, which could be a wolf or so we're trying to replicate nature, in which case, by massively unbalancing the sex ratios in this way in Scotland, it can only lead to further problems, in my view. And I think it's surprising that they've done it, but there may be some politics involved in that.
And of course, from a red deer point of view, when you remove all of the red males and the females come into season at the rut, we then have the seeker deer, which are particularly difficult to cull. They live in the forestry, they stay in the forestry. They'll take advantage of those females coming into season, so we then end up with even more hybridisation.
Yeah. I mean,
potentially we've got a lack of males on the ground now.
Well, yeah. I mean, all these things are true. I think the biggest issue really is looking at it long term. Has anybody really considered what this change of the seasons will do? Of course, you don't have to abide by those seasons. The place on the Western Isles where I help look after deer, we just stick to the original seasons, as do many estates, because there's sort of no need to do anything further than that. And I think that the change of the law must be fine for certain places where they're experiencing terrible damage. I do get it, but I think that in the long term, it's short-sighted. That's a personal view.
Yeah. I mean, back when it first came in, I did some number crunching, and this isn't precise, but I think if we'd have put the female season from the 1st of November to the 31st of March, so that would have been quite an extension. It would have actually put about 30% more season on the females,
Yeah.
and then put the male season the complete opposite. So same as the English Welsh roe deer.
I would prefer to see that.
And that would have seen a 110% increase in the amount of culling that could have been undertaken with the male species.
Yeah.
So we really missed a trick by...
Yeah, so what are you saying? You're saying replicate the roe seasons for all species?
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. From a game dealer's point of view, game dealers, that's another subject in itself.
Yeah.
But from their point of view, it means that they're getting meat all year round.
Yeah.
From the stalker who wants to get out and go shooting deer, he's getting the opportunity to shoot deer all year round. But the most important thing is that he's got an extended season on the females, and the females are what manage in population, what matter in population management. So
we've still got the issue that if the price you get from the game dealer exceeds the cost of extraction, it's like, no, this can't work. It's if government wish an increased cull, you can't just say, I want it to happen. You've got to make it happen. And I mean, it's like the joined up thinking with firearms licensing at the moment being massively behind. You can wait a year or more to get your first certificate. So is that joined up government? You've got to approach this thing as a unified single sort of, well, how can we make this work? I know that government have rejected the idea of a bounty scheme. I think again it would be difficult to sell a bounty scheme to sort of the public, and I sort of get that, but I can't see an alternative.
Well, we've had we were discussing this before we started this podcast about the public's perception of what we do, and it's hugely improved from what it was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
The public understand the need to cull deer.
They do. They can all see it. And as long as it's done humanely by trained people who care about what they're doing, I think, and then, the meat is consumed, and a lot of people are now...
The idea of waste is a no-no.
Exactly. And I think we're, obviously there's a few people who'll never be happy with it, and I quite understand that. But I think broadly speaking, the public is not too hostile to what we do.
No. Which helps.
Yeah.
And they also see the benefit of eating venison.
Well, yeah.
Which
if
also
you talk
helps.
to people, I remember the postman years ago saying to me, I'm not sure if I like what you do. So I took him out one morning. I said, well, come out and have a look and see what I do. And he came out and he said, I hadn't realised what a big problem it was, how many deer there were. And now you've explained to me how this number of deer will produce the same number again next year, and, ever increasing pressure on the environment. He sort of got it, and he was really interesting about it.
Yeah.
And actually, that's the great thing. It's an easy win, really, in terms of the benefit that we bring the countryside.
Yeah, it reminds me that going back a few years, I was working on a cull for the National Trust at one of their forests, and a lot of public in there whilst we were doing the cull. And you met a lot of people who were not keen on what we were doing. However, if you stood in the woodland with that individual and you explained why you were doing it, you stood in amongst saplings that were 12 inches tall, and they'd all survived the summer. It makes it a really easy sell to explain why we're doing it, what we do.
Yeah.
And they can see the benefit of what we can do.
Yeah.
And of course, the main thing is that bit of woodland I mentioned earlier on, where we're looking at the understory completely cleared up to 1.5 meters off the ground. I think it's something like 95% of all wild birds in the UK nest under 1 meter off the ground. So when we take away their nesting material, it's no wonder we've got such a problem with nature and wildlife.
And it is again, I'm pretty happy that the roe have a neutral effect on, because they're self-regulating in numbers, because being territorial, so that if there's too many in an area, they move out. Although that even is quite interesting, because you must remember that, so the first roe was culled on the forest I used to look after in 1976 in Hampshire. So, that was the first. we've now gone to the stage where we never thought roe would get into Wales. Oh, they did. We never thought roe would get, and suddenly the country is now effectively full of roe. So maybe we'll see a problem with them in the next 10 years. That suddenly they've expanded, they filled every corner of the country, which we didn't think they would. And they may also become an issue which, generally speaking, a pretty easily controlled issue, because roe are relatively easy to manage. But it'll be interesting to see if that does become an issue. But in terms of the fallow, I mean, again, I just wish I knew what the answer was.
So you mentioned roe being territorial, moving into every corner of the country. Muntjac.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are territorial. They're small. They have moved into every square inch of the countryside and the towns and the cities.
Yep.
They are so adaptable. We briefly touched on bounties. Is there any chance we can ever control Muntjac? I think they've gone.
I remember somebody on a meeting the other day, it was from DEFRA, I think, saying, we've got to address the Muntjac problem. And I said, I think, the stable door's open and this one's bolted. I think you will have to learn to live with them. I cannot imagine, because of the nature of how Muntjac have a reserve constantly in the gardens of suburban gardens, that whatever you do on a big scale was this massive reserve. And in all the experience I've had of trying to control Muntjac populations, it doesn't seem to affect the numbers. You just keep increasing your cull and nothing changes. They get younger and they may get smaller, but they don't really reduce in number. And I think that I'd be interested to know what the answer may be. I've often thought, do you remember the old way we used to control roe numbers? You'd say, leave the territorial male and it'll control the numbers in an area. And it's sort of true. It's a little bit woo, but it's sort of, there is something in that. I wonder if the same would work for Muntjac. I wonder whether that might be one way of doing it, rather than just constantly putting shooting pressure on, which I'm unclear about. I think, it's awful not to have solutions. I've been in the game long enough. I ought to have solutions.
So you mentioned DEFRA. Now, DEFRA are only engaging with the landowners, the farmers, who are receiving grants and are doing it in a large scale.
Yeah.
Of course, when you look at any small village, where we are now, this is a small village, and around the village there are horse paddocks.
Yeah.
With 20-foot wide hawthorn, what used to be a tidy hedge, is now spread. It's hawthorn and bramble. It's 20 foot wide.
There's a Muntjac just out in the garden there, just outside the garden, and that's in the middle of the village.
Yeah. How DEFRA aren't going to have any say over those areas?
No, I don't. I think DEFRA I don't even think DEFRA thinks they can solve the problem. What they want to do is to help us solve the problem. But I think, I don't want to get too political, but I don't think they've offered any solutions at the moment. I'm not. I was quite interested to hear that there was, in night shooting licenses, that quite a lot more Muntjac than I thought were successfully culled using night shooting licenses. I thought that it wouldn't make a lot of difference, night shooting for Muntjac. So that's the sort of jury's out on that, and that might work. But I think that I really don't imagine that we'd ever be able to massively reduce or get rid of them. I think that, to say they're an invasive alien species and therefore they've got to go, it just wouldn't happen. Couldn't happen. Not anymore.
Okay, so we've mentioned DEFRA and government, and that's obviously a big spin on the way things are going forward, and have also been done in the past. So there's a little bit of, let's be blunt here, there's going to be a little bit of blame for government and the way they've conducted themselves, and dare I bring into it the Deer Initiative, which was started around 25 years ago. The situation hasn't got any better because of a designated group looking after deer. It's got a lot worse. Would that be fair to say, or is that?
Well, I think you're asking me to stray into the politics, which I'm uncomfortable with. I think everybody's well-intentioned, and in some areas, clearly the Deer Initiative, was successful in some of the areas that they operated in, especially in sites of special scientific interest. I don't doubt that. I don't think their aspirations were greater than that. So I don't think you can say that they failed. I mean, I think the business model failed, but that's a separate question. I think that, and it wouldn't be right to blame government for any of this. Others could blame the stalkers and say you didn't do your job properly. And deer management has been under-resourced, if you like. I mean, people holding on to too much land and the sort of the things you hear from time to time. That there wasn't enough deer management done at a critical period in the 80s. And that's, that might be the blame could be ours.
Yeah, and we've got a few events such as Foot and Mouth.
Yeah, Foot and Mouth. That was
Foot and Mouth in the early 2000s.
How many years was that we couldn't get out for? It was a full year, but was it more?
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. We had Foot and Mouth when you couldn't stalk. Then you had COVID, obviously.
COVID.
Which restricted it.
We still got out and did some stalking, but the downside of COVID was the market disappeared.
Absolutely.
So there was, the AGHEs, bless them, for whatever, they've got their good parts, they've got their bad points, but bottom line is that they take the majority of fallow that people who are shooting a lot, because you just can't deal with them all yourself, or most people can't deal with them themselves, they're taking the fallow and they're getting rid of a product from our stalking.
Yeah.
And we don't get paid a great deal of money for it.
No.
And of course, come COVID, the market for them just dried up.
Yeah.
So they just weren't taking deer, which, fair play to the ones that are still here. They got through a pretty rocky patch to still be here and doing what they do.
I don't know what the solution is to the venison market. I don't have great confidence, funnily enough. I think that, yes, we can make more people eat more, and I think they already do and will do, but I cannot see that if we massively improve it, then farmers will complain that their beef sales go down. There's only so much meat that's going to be consumed, whether it's one species or another. So I think that may not be the solution. I think that if I was a game dealer, I find it very difficult because, effectively you've got the back end of a deer, which is sellable, and the front end, which is probably not, if it's
especially on the smaller species.
Yeah. So you're talking about a product which requires a great deal of work in order to take it into the market, take it into the sort of food chain, and a lot of waste, which is expensive to get rid of. So I mean, I do feel sort of I cannot imagine a situation where suddenly we're going to get paid more for what we do, and I think in that absence, the market rules, I'm afraid, and this is the truth of it all. That if the cost of extraction is greater than the money you're being given, then it's going to limit what you do.
Yeah, especially with the smaller species.
Yeah. Well, what do you get from muntjac?
A muntjac at the moment is 50p a kilo if they're clean. Okay. That definition of clean is probably head or neck shot.
Right. Yeah.
50 pence a kilo muntjac, a 10 kilo muntjac, you're going to get £5 for.
Yeah.
That's pretty pitiful. But
Yeah.
in the same breath, I can see the game dealer's point of view.
Of course.
It's as much effort to deal with a muntjac carcass as it is a fallow carcass. Yet you get, from that 10 kilo, you may end up getting 6 kilos of meat you can use at a push, probably.
And I think that this is why the muntjac problem won't go away, because I think a lot of people shoot to eat them. So they use them as a food source and don't probably put the pressure on they should.
That would be fair, yeah.
And then the other thing, of course, which is true of absolutely everybody I know who's professionally involved in muntjac control, is that when you look at your records at the end of the year, you've shot more males than females, even though you've tried not to. Because all those 6-month-old animals, you think, oh, that looks like a female, it turns out to be a little male. So we know for what they're not breeding more male kids than female kids. We know that somehow the females are avoiding us, and we are out of the situation. Must technically be out of control. I don't know about you. Do you find that your records show that?
Yes, so we've got data. We do the culling at an estate in Norfolk where we take people out and do mentoring with people.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last year, we've done some pretty good record keeping.
Mm-hmm.
We've been maintaining, and you're absolutely right. It's probably 60% male over female.
And it's not through not trying. It's not like you know, it happens.
But it is.
Everybody.
The estate has got a policy of shoot every muntjac you can.
Yeah.
So every muntjac we see, we're shooting. It's not being selective.
No, but that's interesting because it is, it is, what's the word I'm looking for? No, arbitrary. It's the most natural form of selection. If you shoot the first thing you see, then quite clearly, if you're still shooting more males than females, it's not a chosen outcome, but it is natural. Yeah. And that shows that they are particularly difficult. That wouldn't happen with any other species, I don't think.
No. But muntjac, because of their size, because of their territories, you get a sea of brambles in forestry. Those does can stay underneath.
You walk past
that.
Yeah.
You'll never see them,
no.
Even with thermal. Thermal's a great move forward, but you'll never see them. And we're only walking along the rides. We generally only walk along rides. When you start going off the rides and stalking through tight woodland blocks, that's when you start finding the old animals and the big-headed bucks where they're hidden in the staying out. The reason they've got big heads is because they've got old. Yeah. The reason they've got old is because they're staying out away.
Yeah, you walk past them. I know you do. Interesting with thermals, isn't it? I'm a recent-ish conversion to I've forgotten how to stalk now because I only use a thermal. And if you forget it when you go out, you think, oh, God, I'm going to have to relearn the old skills. It has been a massive change, but it's a benefit. It's like moderators when they came in. Moderators were, I suppose, quad sticks, and now thermals have changed the world. No other kit matters, but those three, that's made a difference.
Okay, so moderators, they do make a difference.
Well, they make us shoot better.
We shoot better. Yeah. We're not all deaf now. Pardon? Yeah, exactly. But it does save your hearing.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah, it's... the last time I fired a rifle without a moderator on, without hearing protection on, it stung. Yes, it hurts. It's pretty horrendous. So we're used to shooting moderators. It does make a difference for culling.
Yeah.
It seems that the deer don't depart as quickly. Maybe they can't work out where the sound's coming from.
I think our jury's out on that one.
When you're in a group of fallow and you're a little bit of a distance away from them, you can often take advantage of them because they don't really know which way to go. They group up. You can snipe the ones as they step off from a group. That I think helps. I think that big boom of not having a moderator on, you've got them. They're often moving, at least in my experience. Quad sticks.
Oh, it's just, I can't believe how brilliant they are. They're just, I'm not the greatest shot in the world. I don't think, I'm not pretending to be something I'm not, but I can shoot as well off sticks as I can lying down. They are really, really good. I think they have changed the game.
And in thermal imaging, well, everybody now is using the thermal spotter. It's certainly in the lowlands. I think the only time I don't see people using them is when you're out on a traditional hill stalk.
Yeah, because all the rocks come up white. And, so
it's just not a done thing, is it?
I took one up, and all I saw was I kept seeing rocks. No, I don't think they're useful up there. But others would disagree, I'm sure.
There's a use, but the traditional going out with a ghillie, it's not the done thing to have a thermal spotter with you. But you're absolutely right. You go out stalking now without your thermal spotter, and it's
like forgetting your binoculars in the old days.
Yeah, you might as well go without your bolt now. So it's a major drawback. What's your views on electronic sights?
I'm sorry, but I don't have any view on them because I think I've only ever seen one once, and it was yours. And I thought, well, this is amazing, but I can't I'm too old for it at the moment. I'll think about it.
Too old for you might find it's an advantage with your eyesight.
I don't think I'll ever go to them. No, I don't think I'll ever buy one. I think I'm happy with what I've got for the rest of my stalking career. I just don't see that. I mean, remember, I'm getting close to retirement now, and the sort of numbers that I used to get involved in aren't the same. I don't think I need that. But they do look good. I mean, we've had some problems on training days with them, where people don't understand how to use them and then can't adjust ranges.
Yeah, my personal view is that it's not the way forward for people coming into stalking. You need to learn how to shoot.
Yeah.
Get used to using glass optics and
Yeah.
actually look at your target.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think so. But honestly, you're asking the wrong person about that, because I'm just not. I'm behind the curve on that.
That's fair enough, isn't it? So I've got a few questions just to finish up with, and I'm going to ask these sort of questions at the end of the podcast. So my first one to you is, what's your favourite calibre and why?
If you could think of all the changes that happened over 40 years, with sort of I remember when I started, it was the 757. It was a lovely round. Still is a lovely round, but it's out of favour. Then there was the 270, which used to knock hell out of us all until you got a moderator, and then suddenly it was perfect. And then you got 308s, which used to wallop you in the shoulder, but now, again with moderators, they're good. I don't think it's now everybody's using the 6.5 Creedmoor, which I just understand is wonderful. But, they all do the same thing, really. They lob a bullet.
What are you using now?
I've got my old 243, which is over 20 years old. Maybe it's more. And I love it. And it's a very, it's perfect. I have a 308, a lovely, predictable piece of artillery.
Lobbing them in, dropping them on target.
But it's predictable. And but I think they all do the same thing. And I think that you could spend a lot of time, getting a bit over interested in all.
Okay, so the next question is, what one stalking experience would you like to get done before your days are done with stalking? Where would you like to go, shoot, whatever?
Yeah. The funny thing is, I'm afraid to say I've got soft, so I don't really, want to do that anymore. I'm just as happy to look. I'd love to go into the Austrian mountains and see chamois, but I don't actually need to come home having, pulled the trigger or anything. I just think that you do. I mean, most people get to a stage where, they go through it, and I'm afraid I've got to that stage.
That's fair.
I won't be doing any more. New experiences. Sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. And who do you think we should have on the podcast in the future?
Oh gosh, is there anybody else?
Is there anybody else? Well, there's a confidence there in that, isn't there?
I think that anybody who can add something to the debate on good deer management is really, really important, because we're just all wrapped up in the moment in kill more deer. Well, that's the message we're getting. And it's not as simple as that. You've got to look at it more in the round. And especially this thing of what gets left behind. I'm really, really worried that 5 years from now, we're going to leave populations which are heavily female dominated, which are still therefore out of control and maybe worse. And no one's actually thinking, oh, we love deer. I'd love to see, roe was so easy to manage 30 years ago. We had wonderful populations of roe in the south of England, best quality in the world. It was, it was great, and I'd love to see that again. But unless we address this issue of what gets left behind after all this, I don't, we're looking at doom. But so anybody who can contribute to that, who's really sort of, interesting. I always love hearing Glyn. He talks very nicely.
No, I'm sure we'll get
I'm sure you'll have to have him.
Yeah, we'll get Glyn on there.
And then if you can get someone from government to come and explain their position.
I'd love to have somebody from government, but I know that they're very constrained by what they're allowed to say from their media departments and all the rest of it. We need to get past that. We need to have an open discussion like this where people can get their points across. And
I think government, I wish they would, they would ask the experts, and I think that would help them if they engage more, before they came to conclusions. They sent out that wonderful paper, didn't they? The England-Wales strategy paper. And then the sort of responses they got, they didn't treat the responses equally. Well, they did treat them equally, where they should have put more emphasis on the people who knew what they were talking about, who are...
Well, okay, so you've brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
I think when it came out, I looked, and they actually said that they used the comments from the landowners,
Mm-hmm.
they used comments from ecologists,
Yes,
and they discounted the rest.
I don't remember that.
I'd have to look at that and make sure, but
they didn't put
a lot of weight on the deer stalkers.
No, I think they treated everybody equally. So they didn't, if you were a unit of 5,000 or 100,000 giving a view, that was an equal to one person giving one view from another organisation. I think that is my memory, is that they didn't scale the responses, and they certainly didn't scale the responses by expertise. So, for example, if you're a forester and you're asked, are there too many deer? Well, the answer is going to be yes. Or do you agree with this, that, and the other? The answer is going to be yes, because you don't really understand the implications of what you're being asked. Whereas it's risky to accept responses like that. You need to have someone who really understands the question and what the answer needs to be.
Yeah, it's like doing a herbivore impact assessment. If you ask a forester and a deer stalker to do the same job in the same bit of ground, you'll probably get two very different answers.
That you asked who should come on your podcast. Who was it the other day who was talking to us about HIAs and saying we need a unified method of doing it? Oh, yeah, yes, Kim taught on one of the courses once.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that.
What I mean.
Yeah, we do need to be, probably the guy from Woodland Trust.
Yeah.
Nick
Beale.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Let's get him on.
Yeah, I will ask him. Yeah, he's, we do need to be doing it in a unified way. We need to be using a scientific matrix for recording damage.
Yeah, I'm not, I'm not quite happy with them at the moment because they do seem a bit subjective. So I don't quite get it. But things like time-lapse photography, that's a brilliant way, isn't it?
It shows you the damage over whether it's improving or not over years. Or
it's going to take years, isn't it?
It's going to take years. Of course, then we have drones that come into it as well. Great for counting the minimum number of deer that it can see at that time. And of course, if a muntjac under heavy bramble, it may not see them.
I guess not.
It doesn't. How many times have we walked down a ride and you're looking with your thermal as you go down a ride and a muntjac gets up 5 metres from you?
Yeah.
How could you miss that muntjac?
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah. How could you scan through there with your thermal, yet you don't see that muntjac right in front of you? So it is only thermal and not X-ray. Anyway, I think that wraps it up, Dominic. Thank you.
My goodness.
Thank you for your time.
No, it's been a great pleasure.
Great.
Never done anything like this before, and don't suppose I'll ever do it again.
Well, you never know. You might get lots of invites now.
Well,